Hi, welcome back to the podcast School of Love, where we want to help you create parent-child relationships where you can talk about anything, especially about sex. In this episode, I share about childbirth and my own experience and how I chose to share that with my kids and let them experience it with me. And so, just listen in and understand that whole journey, how I got to deciding that and accomplishing that. And I also wanted to share a little bit about how childbirth is also somehow connected to this whole sex education thing. And it's so much better when we can talk about it and be open about it and share our knowledge from generation to generation about it. I realized that many generations didn't share. They maybe even felt they didn't have anything to share or were too ashamed to share. And so, let's talk about it. Let's be able to talk about anything. And whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl, this is a really natural thing in this world. We have to be born in order to be a part of it. So, I hope you enjoy this episode. And let's talk about childbirth. Hello, welcome back to School of Love. I am here all by myself. I want to talk to you about my childbirth experience, which was just 3 weeks ago now. It actually took a lot to just get to this moment. I wanted to record already a few days ago, didn't work out, and then another time in between, and then I basically got peed on by my newborn, and I also tried to do it with him, but that also didn't work out. So big thanks to my family who is watching him now. And I am coming to you feeling really grateful, of course. And I wanted to share with you about my birth story. Every birth story is really special. I think everyone, when someone close to you has a baby, then you want to know how it was. How was it going through labor? Especially women, I think, want to hear from other women, like, okay, how was it having your baby? Because it's such a special experience. And I wanted to share that with you. Why not, right? If I have a podcast. But not only just from my own experiences and testimonies, but also from the perspective of School of Love and what I'm trying to share with you guys. I could see some important points, going through this experience. So I wanted to get to that afterwards. So, just to back up a few years ago, we had 4 kids and I wasn't planning to have more, but we did decide to have another child. And first all my kids decided they really want one, and my husband as well. And I was the last one to also agree. And having this decision made, I then also started wishing to make it a different kind of experience. And I think one thing that influenced me to decide that I want to make it different this time is hearing from a friend of mine and how she had a home birth. And I just wanted to share that because I think a lot of the time we just do what the norm is, right? I made a podcast once against the norm because, often we just go with the flow, and that's not always going to be, it's definitely not the only right way. And sometimes it's also not really what our heart says. So, one friend of mine, she had a few, or not a few, but several kids. And I know she really changed her whole experience from the first birth experience being quite traumatic to the last one being really beautiful. And it was a home birth without any midwife present. So I was really impressed by that. And so hearing that testimony, it made some sort of new neural pathway in my brain, thinking that I can also do a home birth. I think not necessarily alone. I did plan to have a midwife, but this idea took root inside myself of wishing to do a home birth. And yeah, I'm also sharing that because who knows, like maybe if someone listening right now also hears this story, maybe they might also open up their eyes to that kind of experience. This is not saying that any other kind of birth is less significant, because every birth is so special. And I love all of my other birth experiences with my other kids, which were all in the hospital. And they were really beautiful experiences. So yeah, everyone has their own way and their own creation. But yeah, I feel like what I really want to also emphasize is that we can make it our own creation and not just let it kind of, yeah, be a passive experience. But when we can really create with this experience, this whole birth, the pregnancy, and then, yeah, it's more ours. And yeah, I want to get into this a little bit later, but actually we feel ourselves the most. And sometimes I feel like we can forget to keep in touch with those feelings that we know best, because there's so much emphasis on listening to your doctor, listening to what, they say in the hospital. And so, yeah, what I really wanted to tune into this time, this round, being pregnant and also going through birth, was learning to really listen to myself and my feelings. Of course, with support from experts, but also not ignoring what I hear inside my own heart. So, yeah, that's one thing. And then another thing that also grew into a substantial wish of mine was to not only do a home birth, but also to share that experience with my kids. How did that idea come about? So I haven't been doing this recently, but on social media, there are some accounts that share some really genuine birthing experiences. And a few years back, I used to watch those. And because I think it's such a beautiful moment when the baby is born, like it brought me to tears almost every time. And yeah, I think since hearing this experience from my friend, I was really fascinated with home birth and women creating their own experiences around birth, the way they choose. And I saw how women, created really nice settings at home or invited more family members also to the birth. And yeah, I thought it was so moving. One birth I saw where a sibling was present, a sibling of the future born baby. And then the baby was born and the sibling cut the umbilical cord. And I just thought, wow, like what a bonding experience. And then there was another experience that I watched where a mother was going through labor, and it didn't look like it was the shortest labor because like it showed little clips of her at different points of labor and also in different locations around her house. And the kids were just running around and sometimes talking with her and, asking her for things. And the father was also somehow a part of it. And I saw this and I remember being so impressed. And my thought was also, I can't do that. I could not do that. That's what I was thinking. But this year, I decided I can. I decided to change that because I wanted to, and I also wanted to give my children this experience of birth becoming something normal. And so, yeah, of course my plan was not to force my kids to be with me, but my wish was that within the freedom of our big enough house. It's not one room, right? There are 3 different floors, to let our kids choose how much they want to be involved or not. So, yeah, that's just something else I wanted to share because, this thought process says so much. When we just decide to say, I can't, then of course we can't. But if we have a really strong wish of why we want that, why we have that desire, then we can change I can't to I can. It's possible, guys. Yeah, I really thought this would not be possible for me. But yeah, many things, not only myself, made it possible. So yeah, going a little bit more into the future, because I was a few years back. So during the pregnancy of our currently born baby, I also really hoped to make this birthing experience a wonderful one because, of course, if I'm planning to have my kids present, I want them to experience a really full-on wonderful birth, not something that's, I know there is some danger or risks involved, right? But I really wanted to visualize a calm, peaceful birth. So, I am someone who went through pregnancy feeling pretty good. Pregnancy, I was healthy. I didn't have too many complaints, but I did have some fear around labor. I guess the pain, I wasn't a big fan of contractions, and just this unknowing of how long am I going to be going through it, So I did my best to visualize the kind of experience that I want. And I know many people go through lots of pain, but I knew that some people also don't experience pain through birth, during birth. And so that's what I was choosing to focus on. And yeah, I also heard many experiences of women going through birth and it being a really quick, intense, but quick experience. So I decided, okay, I am going to have a very quick birth. The kids will then come right at the end of my short labor, right when the baby comes, and yeah, it will be exactly as I want. And yeah, I'll get to how it went in reality later. But so one thing that I was doing in order to manifest this was, instead of saying things like, yeah, I want a painless birth, there was still the word pain involved, right? In that word painless. So then you still think of pain, right? It's kind of like, hey, don't think about elephants. Then you think about elephants. So I picked completely different words that I wanted to associate with birth, which were peaceful, effortless, beautiful, spiritual, and just a wonderful bonding experience, right? So I was thinking about those words every time I thought about birth. And, just a spoiler alert, my birth was not super short, but it was beautiful, of course. And also I felt like the fear of labor was slowly going away as I got closer to it. So in order to keep up this manifestation and this wish of mine, I felt like something else I had to do was become immune to other people's comments and reactions and influence on my decisions that I decided to have around my wish for childbirth and for labor. I noticed, I don't know, maybe because I was a lot more aware of what I wanted the experience to be, how lots of women, when talking about birth and labor, they showed pity on me, for me, just like, oh yeah, that's a tough thing. oh, it's not always so nice. And, you know, there was just this kind of comments and worry and so on. So I had to really, being the kind of person that normally takes on these emotions myself when people express them, I had to be instead just like a mirror and reflecting it back and just stay strong to what I was really hoping for. So if people said, oh yeah, your labor is really not a nice thing always, I would just kind of stick my chin up and be like, well, I know some women do suffer a lot, but I know that some also have wonderful experiences. And it's true, guys. It really is true. It's just not advertised as much. Also, if you look in Hollywood, in movies, they usually are showing like the most intense scenes of labor that even happen, right? But there's a lot of peace actually that isn't shown. And yeah, so I was just focusing on that. And luckily I had heard a few testimonies of women I know who had actually really nice birthing experiences. And so I think, yeah, I developed a vision, and it could have been even more clear, but there are some things that we have to let go of, right? So I started letting go very late, maybe in the pregnancy, because I was already 40 weeks pregnant, and that due date was actually already a postponed date. It was even earlier, but the doctor changed it to an even later one. So I was really expecting to have our baby, you know, just a few days late, because I'm always late with my kids. Maybe 1 day, 2 day, 5 days max. But our baby did not come. And so, yeah, these little hopes of having a cool birthday, like the same birthday as mine, because I had my birthday the 19th of July and our baby was due the 17th. So, yeah, okay, that didn't work. And then I thought, oh, the 21st. 21's my favorite number. That would also be cool. But no, I had to let go of that. The 27th I also liked because, you know, my husband's on the 26th of another month. And then we also have in our family the 28th and the 29th of other months. So I thought 27, that must be the day that's meant to be. But no, it wasn't. And so I don't know, these are just small things, but, you know, being really highly pregnant and really trying to get the baby out every day, you know, drinking special teas and doing massages, I was getting restless. And when the baby didn't come after a whole week over his due date, I was starting to think, like, is there something wrong with me? You know, my last pregnancy, I was induced in the end, because in Germany, the mainstream way is that the doctors will tell you after 10 days, it's time to induce because so many risks. That's just what they say, yeah. But midwives will tell you something else. And so, you know, I was getting a bit restless, but luckily I had some people that were really supporting me, just tuning into my body, and a great midwife and a great doctor who also respected when I said, I'm going to just do all my checkups with my midwife now and let this baby come when he wants to come. So when was he going to come? I almost lost hope that my body can actually like trigger labor. I was like, maybe I have to be induced or something. My husband sent me this funny reel. He wasn't sure if I would laugh or not, but I did find it funny actually, because it was really illustrating what I felt, which was a pregnant woman and feeling like the baby's just going to live in me. He's going to be in there until he's 30 and, you know, learn to do everything inside my tummy, uh, which of course is ridiculous, but yeah, it just felt like this baby is not coming. Anyway, so I had to let go of some things that I had visualized, as well as how quick I wanted that birth to be. Okay, so I'll get into how that birth happened. So my water broke a quarter to midnight, and I was just so relieved and happy. So this was the 10th day, but yeah, after midnight would have been the 11th day after the due date. And I was just feeling so happy, and yeah, let the birth process continue. And then decided to call my midwife about 2 hours later because I was so convinced the baby's going to come any minute. And I was even thinking, will she make it before the baby comes? Because I was so in this headspace of, yeah, the baby could come in just 10 minutes, any 10 minutes, and then he'll just suddenly be there. So she came and she checked the baby's heartbeat. And, she came to our house and everything. It was the middle of the night, and, everything was fine. And then we waited, and she started to knit. She knits hats, baby hats for the newborns whenever she's waiting for the birth. And yeah, I just did what I could to get the labor going. I walked up and down the stairs in our house, and eventually took a bath. And I was sure that baby is going to be born in that water, any minute. And, my midwife was also giving me things to get the labor to progress. And, homeopathic medicine, massaging, and so on. And yeah, my husband and I were super tired because we were just staying up the whole night. And yeah, it just wasn't really progressing like I had imagined. And although we had created a really wonderful atmosphere at home, we put candles around our bathroom, and I put on some really nice music. So I was really in a meditative space, but yeah, it just wasn't time yet. And then I saw how light was slowly coming through the window, and I started to hear cars driving more often outside. And that means, I hadn't looked at the clock for a while, but that means life is waking up. And, it was a school day. And so that means the kids would also be waking up soon. So my plan was actually, I go through the whole labor, and right when it's really the active labor time where it's time to push, that's when we would wake up the kids. But no, they had to wake up on their own, and we were still waiting for the baby. So yeah, my husband told the kids, yeah, you can sleep a bit longer because the baby's coming today, and yeah, you don't have to go to school. So yeah, nobody could sleep longer. They were way too excited. And they got out of bed, and, my older kids, they really, were quite helpful. They helped the younger ones to have breakfast and made a really sweet sign for our baby to welcome him when he's born. And then, yeah, at some point, our youngest, he came back. He wanted to be with me, and he stayed with me pretty much for the last few hours of labor. Not exactly what I planned, but, I was trying to manifest a special experience, so that's what I got. And yeah, it was actually, in the end, I think I wouldn't change anything, So this experience wasn't exactly what I visualized, but in the end, it did change how I view birth. I feel like it did take away so much fear. as well as it. Yeah, now I have really special memories of that birth here in my house, and not only with my husband and the midwife, but also with my kids. My youngest son, he was really holding my hand during the contractions, even when they got more intense. And, he was asking a question about everything, like, why is mama breathing that way? Why is the midwife massaging her like that? And so, yeah, I think, of course, it was intense. And my midwife said in the end, the more people you have present at a birth, the longer it takes. So that could have also been the case subconsciously, that, yeah, I was just not in my little birth bubble like, animals. They go out in nature and they find a quiet place and they give birth there. So the place I was in was not so quiet. There was a 4-year-old babbling in the background, but it was really beautiful in the end. And and then finally, it was time to push out the baby. I could almost not believe it because it just had taken so long. So, I said my water broke 1:45, and then it was actually 2 p.m. So it took even longer than my first birth, technically, with my first daughter. That was very unexpected for me because, my births did gradually get shorter and shorter. But this one was the longest. And anyway, it was time for our baby to finally come out. And, when it was time, my youngest son, he was the one who yelled to his siblings saying, he's coming. And then almost everyone came up. I think one might have been a little bit deterred because my youngest son was like, why is there blood? But it was really just one drop, guys. Don't worry. It was nothing dramatic. And so then they were all present when our youngest son was born. And, I picked him up in my arms and I just felt so much joy and relief. And, these tears of happiness were coming. And my youngest son was asking, why are you crying? And he's like, are you happy? And I said, yes, I'm happy. I'm so happy. And this was just a wonderful, magical moment. And I was so grateful to share it with my whole family, and that everything went well, and that our midwife was so supportive, not only with my whole birthing process and trusting me, but also being so accepting to my kids being around as well. So, and hallelujah, what can I say? It was just such a relief. And now he's here and he's doing great. We're all healthy. And so, one thing that I also wanted to share in this podcast was not only my experience, but, so my friend who gave birth alone, she also suggested this book, which I listened to, called Ina May's Guide to Childbirth by Ina May Gaskin. And so this was a midwife's guide to, birth. And it also, in the book, it shared a lot about many different birth stories. Lots of them inspiring and a lot of interesting facts about birth. How some women's mantras would literally affect their bodies right away during birth, like their dilation, whether they're dilating or not. And Ina May, she's a midwife and she has just so much experience with so many different women, and she could share so much. And she also noticed how, the more at ease a woman is, the faster it can go. But the more tense she is, or yeah, the more discomfort she feels, like with even the people around her in the room, that can really slow down the labor. Any kind of tensity, fear, can even stop the labor process. So, yeah, and then one story she shared really surprised me. She said she heard it from an even older midwife. And before she became a midwife, this older lady said when she was pregnant, she really didn't know where the baby would be coming out. She even looked all over herself in the mirror and even thought literally, okay, it must be the mouth. And so this, I was really obviously surprised and shocked, and it just made me think how, yeah, there's still this shame around birth. Of course, now we have come so much further than this story of not knowing where babies even come out. You know, of course, young kids are still learning it, and you know, there's still lots of belief of, oh, the baby will come out of your tummy, and that is sometimes the case if it was a C-section. But yeah, so I think we've come a long, long way, because I think a lot of us do share that babies come out of vaginas through the birth canal. But yeah, there still is this uncertainty or shame of talking about that. And yeah, it just made me feel so sorry for women who went through that kind of thing, you know, feeling so confused or lost, not even knowing where their babies are coming out or things like that. And then actually someone I know shared with me recently that she was saying how breastfeeding is such a wonderful thing, and she would have loved to breastfeed, but she said she just didn't know how. Nobody was there to show her. And, you know, you think it's the most natural thing, but yeah, some people really needed that support of someone showing them. And I asked her, do you know, like, if your mom breastfed you, and could she not tell you about that? And she said, oh no, that's never been a topic between us, you know? So yeah, I just looked up out of curiosity later and found out that breastfeeding during, post-war time, it became an ultimate low, because in the media they were advertising so much that formula is better than breastfeeding, as well as breasts became so sexualized and a topic of shame. And so, yeah, this acquaintance of mine, she didn't get to have any kind of conversation about breastfeeding, because it was seen as a shameful topic. And so I like to think that we've made a lot of progress generally. You know, a lot of us are able to talk about breastfeeding. But yeah, we're still on our way to what I think, what we're capable of as human beings. You know, God and true parents have said so much about sexual organs and how God loves sex, and I don't blame God, because, you know, it gives us so many beautiful things, and such as birth. And yeah, birth is one of the most natural and beautiful things in this world. I think, unfortunately, there can be pain involved in there too, but there also can be so much beauty. It really depends what you choose to focus on. And yeah, our kids, they'll only believe that birth is natural and beautiful when people around them believe the same thing. So us parents, we are one of the closest people to our children. And if we can really be great advocates of birth and our bodies and eventually sexual organs, then that's giving a lot to our kids. I was so happy to hear after our whole experience, my girls say positive things about birth, And yeah, one said, "Oh, I want to have lots of kids. They're just so sweet." And she said that after seeing me go through birth, So I was really happy that she didn't seem like it was a scary thing. And yeah, and my other daughter said that she would really like to go in a birthing house. Like in Germany, they have, like you can do home birth, but you can also go to a special place where the midwives have everything set up in a birth house, which is really nice. And so, yeah, passing on this positive outlook on birth, that's what I wanted to give my kids. And so I feel like it's a big check on my list that I could tick off. And I, just wanted to share that with you guys. And and to just really share how, birth is normal. There's so many people born on this world, right? And so, if you just take it to the next step, sex is also normal. And we just need to talk about it. And especially talk about it as in the aspect of God's creation. Yeah, when we can take ownership of this conversation in our family and really bring it in and show our kids, the beauty of what a healthy sexual relationship within a blessed family can bring. It's so wholesome and uplifting. And if we don't have this conversation, if we completely leave it off the table, other people have that conversation with your kids, because everybody has to learn these things one way or another. But if we don't talk about it, they're going to learn it from the perspective of whoever else they talk about it with. And sometimes that will be other friends. Sometimes that might be with the internet. And it could also be in a novel, in a book, which also, might not have exactly God's creation in mind. So, I just want to encourage you to have these conversations with your kids about the body and, really feeling it's so great that we have our bodies, that we have our sexual organs, and that we have also true parents' teachings to guide us towards becoming a blessed family, so that we can someday create another family of our own. Our kids growing up, having their kids, that's what I'm talking about. And when our kids can see that as a really wonderful thing, then I think it's also helpful for them to see why it's so useful to guard our purity and nurture our purity, and really think and for them to communicate with their parents about any kind of challenges that are hindering them from that purity that they want to nurture in order to get to that goal of becoming a blessed family someday. So I think that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for listening. I really encourage you to just have some conversations with your kids about childbirth. It's a wonderful place to start in sex education. And anyone can do this, you guys. If I can do it, you can do it. You just have to change that I can't to I can. And in order to do that, you need to find your motivation. And I think we're all motivated for our kids to have really healthy, happy future families. And part of that is sex, right? And a healthy outlook on sex is so much more enriching and empowering than what the world says about it. What movies are saying about it, what TV series are saying about it. It peaks your sexual drive, but then it plummets and you're alone again. It's really not the healthy dynamic of a family thriving with God, So, yeah. So we have to be the ones to advocate for that, for God's design for sex. So I hope I didn't talk too much. Sorry if I did. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. God bless you, and see you in our next episode.